Sick millionaire asks a homeless girl to pretend to be his daughter, and the impossible happens. Without family and without time, he just wanted to hear someone call him Dad before he died. The girl accepted without fully understanding, but something changed in that instant. They created in days what many cannot achieve in years, and his last breath left her a home that no one could erase. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The sun was setting over Chicago as William Harrison observed the horizon through the enormous windows of his office on the top floor of the building that bore his name. At 75, he contemplated the empire he had built: luxury hotels scattered throughout America, real estate developments that had transformed entire neighborhoods, and investments that ensured his name remained among the richest in the country. William adjusted the impeccably tailored suit jacket over his shoulders, now curved by the weight of years. His face, marked by time, maintained the severe expression that intimidated executives and politicians, but his eyes, once penetrating, now seemed empty, like windows of an abandoned house. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was his personal doctor. "Mr. Harrison, the results have arrived. We need to talk in person." The doctor's voice didn't hide the gravity. William knew what that meant. Time was running out. He hung up without responding and continued to contemplate the horizon. It wasn't the news that disturbed him, but the realization he had been trying to ignore for years. He would die alone. His wife had left him decades ago, tired of his obsession with work. They never had children. His nephews and cousins appeared, only at holiday parties, with rehearsed smiles and superficial questions about his health, barely disguising their interest in his will. He had assistants, employees, flatterers, but no one who really cared. William went down to the garage where his driver was waiting. "Home, sir?" "No. I want to walk a bit. You can go. I'll take a taxi later." The driver hesitated, but knew his boss's temperament too well to question it. William walked aimlessly through the busy downtown streets. People passed by hurriedly. No one recognized him outside the context of business magazines or social events. He was just an elderly man, walking alone, invisible in the crowd. His steps led him to Grant Park, where he sat on a bench feeling the fragility of his own body. The park was almost empty at that hour, except for a few couples and people returning from work. That's when he noticed, a few meters away, a girl of approximately 12 years old. She wasn't asking for money like other homeless children. She was sitting on the ground, concentrating on a worn book that she held carefully, as if it were a treasure. There was something in her posture that intrigued him. A silent dignity that contrasted with her worn clothes and poorly cut hair. William observed her for a few minutes, noting how she turned the pages delicately, completely absorbed in reading, oblivious to the world around her. When a park security guard approached with a hostile expression, the girl quickly put the book in a worn backpack and stood up. William realized she was about to be expelled. "She's with me," he said, approaching with firm steps. The security guard looked at him with suspicion, but something in William's authoritative posture and voice made him back off. "You know her, sir?" "Yes, we're just resting before going home." The girl looked at William with wide eyes, a mixture of surprise and distrust. "It's okay, sir. I was just leaving," she said, with a surprisingly articulate voice for someone so young. "You don't need to go. The park is public." William turned to the security guard. "Any problem with that?" The man shook his head negatively and walked away. The girl remained standing, studying William with cautious eyes. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe because you didn't seem to be bothering anyone." "People are bothered just by seeing me," she responded with wisdom beyond her years. William felt something strange, a tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with his medical condition. "What's your name?" "Emily." "Emily. What?" "Just Emily." There was a silence. Emily seemed ready to leave at any moment, like a wild bird about to fly. "What are you reading?" She hesitated before answering, as if assessing whether it was worth continuing the conversation. The Little Prince. I found it in the public library. A good book. I read it to my niece once, William lied, having never actually dedicated time to his nephews and nieces. It's the third time I've read it, said Emily. Each time I understand different things. William felt a sudden interest in this child who spoke like an adult. Do you live nearby? Emily's face immediately closed. I need to go, she said, adjusting the backpack on her shoulders. Wait. William didn't know why he was prolonging the conversation. Have you had dinner? I'm hungry and I don't like eating alone. Emily stared at him with suspicion. I'm not going anywhere with you. William smiled, admiring the girl's prudence. Of course not. There's a diner right on the corner. We can eat sitting in the outdoor area where everyone can see us. Emily hesitated, looking at the diner and then back at William. Her stomach growled, betraying her hunger. Why are you doing this? Honestly, I don't know. William felt strangely vulnerable before her direct question. Maybe because, as you said, we're both used to being invisible, just for different reasons. Something in that response seemed to resonate with Emily. She nodded slightly. All right, but I choose what I'm going to eat, and afterward, we each go our own way. At the diner, William observed with fascination how Emily devoured a sandwich and fries, still maintaining a polite posture. She ate like someone who didn't know when the next meal would be, but without showing desperation. You don't have family? He asked finally. Emily chewed slowly before responding. I do. Somewhere. But they haven't looked for me so far, so I guess we're fine like this. How long have you been on the streets? Not on the streets. I have places where I stay. Libraries during the day, shelters sometimes, it depends. And school? I attend when I can, but it's difficult without a fixed address. William was impressed with the maturity with which she faced her situation. There was no self-pity in her voice, just a practical acknowledgement of the facts. Do you know who I am? He asked suddenly. Emily shrugged. A rich man, judging by the suit and watch, but that doesn't mean much to me. William laughed for the first time in a long time. It was refreshing to be seen just as a rich man, without the weight of his name or reputation. As Emily finished her meal, William felt an inexplicable impulse, something he had never experienced before. An absurd idea began to form in his mind. It was madness, of course, completely irrational, but the doctor's news echoed in his thoughts. Time was running out. What did he have to lose? Emily, he said hesitantly, I have a proposal for you. Emily stared at William with immediate suspicion, her eyes darkening like the sky before a storm. What kind of proposal? She asked, already preparing to stand up. It's not what you're thinking, William hastened to clarify, realizing the misunderstanding. It's something different. He himself was surprised by what he was about to propose. He took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. How to explain something that even he didn't completely understand. Emily, I have a big house. Too big for one person. I have enough money for several lifetimes, but I have no one. He paused, feeling the weight of that confession. I never had children. It's one of my biggest regrets. The girl remained silent, observing him with intensity, as if she could see beyond the words. I'm sick, he continued. I don't have much time, and I'd like to know how it is, what it would be like to have a daughter, even if it's just for a while. Emily leaned back slightly, surprised. Are you asking me to pretend to be your daughter? When the words came out of her mouth, William realized how absurd it sounded. He was about to withdraw the proposal when Emily continued. Why? What do you gain from this? There was no indignation in her voice, just genuine curiosity. William felt exposed, vulnerable in a way he hadn't experienced for decades. I can't explain it. Maybe a chance to feel something I've never felt. To correct a mistake, even if it's too late. Emily looked at her own empty plate, then at her small, rough hands. What exactly would I need to do? Live in my house, have your own room, attend a school, have dinner with me, talk, nothing more. And how long would this last? William hesitated. I can't say precisely. A few months, maybe. Until you're gone, completed Emily, showing that she had perfectly understood the situation. Yes, and after. What happens to me after? A question that William hadn't considered. The girl was right to be concerned. I can guarantee that you'll be better off than you are now. My lawyer will take care of the necessary arrangements. Emily remained silent for almost a minute, her gaze distant as if evaluating all possibilities. It wouldn't be a real adoption, would it? Just a pretense. Yes, legally it would be temporary guardianship. But in practice, a comfortable lie, she completed. For both of us, added William. Emily adjusted the backpack beside her chair. I need to think. Of course, responded William, trying to hide his disappointment. I understand if you don't want to. I didn't say I don't want to. I said I need to think. Emily stood up. I'll be here tomorrow, same time. I'll give you my answer. Without waiting for a reply, she walked away with determined steps out of the diner. William watched until the small figure disappeared around the corner. That night in his mansion in Lincoln Park, William couldn't sleep. He walked through the empty rooms, thinking about the madness he had proposed. What would his board of directors say? What would his relatives, who were already fighting over his inheritance like vultures, say? And what would his doctor say about bringing a homeless child into his home in his state of health? At dawn, he called Richard, his trusted lawyer for more than 30 years. I need you to come to my house now, he said without preamble. Richard arrived an hour later, finding William in his study. What happened? Any problem with the will? No, I want you to prepare documents for temporary guardianship of a minor. Richard almost dropped the folder he was holding. What's this about? I met a girl, Emily. She must be about 12 years old. She's homeless. William, have you lost your mind? With all due respect, do you have any idea of the legal complications, the implications, the media exposure? I don't care about any of that, William cut him off sharply. I want to know if it's possible, not if it's convenient. Richard sighed, knowing his client's obstinacy well. It's possible, but complicated. We would need to contact Child Protective Services, prove that she's really abandoned, go through social workers, psychological evaluations, home inspections. How long? Months, probably. And even then, there are no guarantees. William lightly punched the desk. I don't have months. The doctor said I have weeks, maybe a few months if I'm lucky. Richard's eyes widened. Has your condition worsened that much? The cancer has spread. I'm refusing further treatments. A heavy silence settled in the room. Richard had known William long enough to know he wouldn't change his mind. There is a faster way, the lawyer finally said. We can claim she's your granddaughter, daughter of some old relationship you were unaware of. Proof of kinship would take time, but we can request temporary guardianship in the meantime. Lie to the courts? You're already planning a lie anyway. I'm just suggesting one that facilitates the process. William reflected for a moment. And if she doesn't accept? Then you'll have avoided a major headache, responded Richard pragmatically. At 5 in the afternoon, William was back on the same bench in Grant Park. He waited for almost an hour, gradually convincing himself that Emily wouldn't come. Why would she? She probably thought better of it and realized the absurdity of that proposal. He was about to get up when he saw her approaching along the stone path. She carried the same worn backpack, but there was something different. She had combed her hair and washed her face, an attempt to look presentable. I thought you wouldn't come, said William when she sat beside him. I said I would, she responded simply. There was a silence. Emily looked ahead, observing the people walking through the park. I have conditions, she said finally. William couldn't contain a smile. Even in that unequal situation, she positioned herself as a negotiator. I'm listening. First, I don't lie about my origins. If someone asks, I don't make up stories about being your biological daughter or granddaughter or whatever. Fair. Second, I want to continue studying. Real school. Of course. Third, she hesitated briefly, when you're no longer. Here I want guarantees that I won't return to the streets. William nodded. I'll arrange that. Fourth, I won't be treated as a servant or a pet. If I'm going to pretend to be your daughter, I want to be treated as such with respect. You have my word. Emily finally turned to face him. Why me? There must be many children in orphanages who would be easier to adopt, even temporarily. The question caught William by surprise. Why her? He didn't know how to explain it himself. I think it was your book, he answered after a moment of reflection. The Little Prince. My mother used to read it to me when I was little. It was the only time she was really present before he interrupted himself. Something about you reminded me of her. The dignity, perhaps, the way you protect what you value. Emily seemed satisfied with the response. All right, I accept your proposal. William extended his hand, which Emily firmly shook. It was a sealed agreement, a mutual promise of a theatre that both knew would inevitably become something more. When do we start? She asked. Right now, if you're ready. Emily adjusted the backpack on her shoulder. I've been ready for a long time. William's driver was waiting a few blocks away. When they entered the luxurious car, Emily showed no amazement. She looked out the window with curiosity, but without the fascination William expected. Have you ever ridden in a car like this? No, but it's just a bigger, more expensive car. It's still just a means of transportation. William smiled. There was something refreshing about the direct way she saw the world, without the reverence money usually inspired. When they arrived at the mansion, however, he noticed the first crack in Emily's armor of indifference. Her eyes momentarily widened at the imposing neoclassical building with its perfectly maintained gardens and the marble fountain at the circular entrance. Welcome to your new home, said William, trying to sound casual. Emily held the strap of her backpack more tightly. It's temporary, she reminded both him and herself. But when the huge carved wooden door opened, revealing an entrance hall with marble floors and a curved staircase leading to the second floor, Emily couldn't completely hide her astonishment. William observed her reaction with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. What was just a house to him, a status symbol but without emotional significance, represented an entirely new world to Emily. A world to which she would have access only briefly, before his illness took him away. Come, he said, indicating the way. I want to show you where you'll be staying. Emily's adaptation to the Harrison mansion was smoother than William had imagined. The girl, accustomed to quickly adjusting to different environments as a survival strategy, observed everything with attentive eyes and learned the unwritten rules of the house with surprising ease. Martha, the housekeeper who had worked for William for more than 20 years, was the first to express distrust. When William introduced Emily as his temporary ward, the woman gave the girl a severe look, examining her from head to toe. Are you sure about this, sir? Martha asked privately, while Emily explored the room assigned to her. Bringing a stranger into the house in your state of health? It's not your business, Martha, William responded coldly. Emily will be staying with us from now on. Treat her as you would any important guest. The next morning, William woke up early, something rare in recent months. He found Emily already awake, sitting on the porch with a book she had taken from the mansion's library, a collection of American short stories. Did you sleep well? He asked, sitting in the chair next to her. Better than in the last few years, she responded honestly. But I woke up 3 times to check if the door was really locked. William felt a tightness in his chest. No one will enter without your permission, Emily. You have my word. Words are easy to say, she responded, without raising her eyes. From the book. And difficult to keep, I know. William sighed. It takes time to build trust. Time is what you don't have, from what I understand. Her frankness surprised him again. It was as if Emily had been born without that social filter that makes people avoid uncomfortable truths. You're right, so we'll have to accelerate the process. He paused. What do you think of starting by choosing new clothes for you? My people can bring options here. You don't need to go out if you don't want to. Emily finally raised her eyes from the book. I prefer to go to the stores. I want to choose personally. Of course, as you wish. That afternoon, they went to the most exclusive mall in the city. Emily, who had initially requested only normal clothes, was visibly uncomfortable with the prices and the differential treatment they received in the stores. "I don't need so much," she protested, when William insisted that she try on another outfit. "2 sets of clothes are enough." "Let me do this," he asked. "It's part of the agreement, remember? To treat you as I would treat a daughter." "Would you spoil a daughter like this?" William reflected. "Probably yes. I always compensated for absence with gifts." Emily looked him directly in the eyes. "Is that why you're alone now?" The question hit William like a punch. In any other circumstance, he would have reacted with fury at such impertinence. But there was something in Emily's disconcerting sincerity that disarmed his usual defensiveness. "Yes," he finally answered, "that's exactly why." After that, Emily accepted a few more pieces of clothing, but insisted on maintaining a simple and practical style. No elaborate dresses or extravagant shoes that the salespeople tried to push. The following week, Richard, the lawyer, obtained the necessary documentation to enroll Emily in a private school near the mansion. The official version was that she was the daughter of a former employee who had recently died, and William, in an act of kindness, had decided to take her in. The story wasn't completely convincing, but the name and influence of William Harrison were enough to suppress any deeper questioning. Emily's first week at school was a test for both of them. William, habitually disinterested in others' problems, found himself anxiously waiting for her return, wanting to know how her day had been, if the teachers were good, if she had made friends. "It was strange," Emily told him as they dined. It was the first time they used the huge dining room, usually reserved for special occasions. "They have such a different life, such different worries." "How so?" A girl cried because she got last year's iPhone, not the new model. Another was devastated because her parents postponed a trip to Disney. Emily cut a piece of meat. "Meanwhile, I'm thinking about how to get the books to keep up with classes." "You don't need to worry about that. I'll buy all the necessary materials." "I know, but it's hard to turn off that way of thinking, of always calculating what's necessary to survive." William observed her with growing admiration. In just a few weeks, Emily had revealed herself to be not only intelligent, but deeply reflective. There was a wisdom in her that went far beyond her age, forged in the difficulties she had faced. As the days passed, a routine began to establish itself. Emily went to school in the morning, studied in the afternoon in the mansion's library, and at night had dinner with William. Gradually, the conversations became longer and more personal. William began to tell stories of his childhood, of the distant relationship with his own father, of how he had built his empire from nothing. Emily, in turn, revealed fragments of her story bit by bit like pieces of a painful puzzle. The mother who had abandoned her when she was 6 years old, the years in an orphanage where she had suffered neglect, the escape at 10 years old when she realized no one would come for her, survival on the streets, sleeping in shelters when possible, in subway stations when necessary. One night after a particularly pleasant dinner, William was struck by a strong pain in his chest. He tried to disguise it, but Emily noticed immediately. "Are you okay, sir?" "Just tired," he lied, discreetly pressing the emergency button he carried with him. In minutes, his private nurse, Linda, arrived at the office where William had taken refuge. Emily observed everything from the door, with an expression that mixed concern and resignation, as if she had already expected that moment. "You can come in, Emily," called William, while Linda checked his vital signs. "You don't need to spy." The girl approached hesitantly. "Is it serious?" she asked directly to the nurse. Linda exchanged a look with William, who nodded slightly, authorizing her to be honest. "Mr. Harrison's condition is delicate. He needs to rest and take his medication correctly." "What exactly does he have?" "Cancer," responded William before Linda could elaborate euphemisms. "Terminal. It has already spread throughout the body." Emily absorbed the information in silence. She showed no excessive shock or sadness, just acceptance. "How long?" "A few months, maybe less," responded William. It depends on various factors. Emily nodded, as if that confirmed her internal calculations. I understand. She paused. Will you send me away when you get very sick? The question caught William by surprise. He hadn't considered that possibility. No, Emily. You can stay until the end if you want. I want to. The response was immediate, without hesitation. No one should be alone at that moment. Linda observed the interaction with growing admiration. There was something in Emily's presence that seemed to calm William, make him more receptive to the medical care he normally rejected with irritation. In the following weeks, William's health fluctuated. There were good days when he could work in his home office and even take Emily for short walks. And there were bad days when he remained confined to his room with pains that not even the most potent painkillers could completely alleviate. On one of those bad days, Emily surprised everyone by entering William's room carrying a chessboard. You told me you played when you were young, she explained, in the face of his interrogative look. I thought we could play to pass the time. I don't have the head for games today, Emily. I understand, but maybe it helps distract from the pain. William sighed but ended up agreeing. To his surprise, Emily knew the rules of the game well. She wasn't an exceptional player, but she displayed remarkable logical reasoning for someone without formal training. Where did you learn to play like this? A man in the park taught me. He played alone and started to explain the rules to me when he noticed my interest. We played almost every day until he stopped showing up. Did he move? Emily shrugged. Or departed. I never knew. That's how it is on the streets. People appear and disappear. The game became a daily ritual. Even on days when William was worse, Emily would appear with the board, sit beside the bed, and begin organizing the pieces. Sometimes they played just a few moves before fatigue overcame him. Other times, they managed to complete several games in a row. It was during one of these games that William noticed something that had escaped his perception. Emily was happy. It wasn't an exuberant or noisy happiness, but a contented tranquility that manifested in how her shoulders were more relaxed, in how she smiled more frequently, in how she no longer obsessively checked if the doors were locked. You're different, he commented. How so? More at peace, I think. Emily reflected for a moment while moving a pawn. I think it's because for the first time, I'm not just surviving. I'm living. She paused. And you? Me what? You're also different. William hadn't thought about it, but Emily was right. Despite the physical deterioration, there was a lightness in his spirit that he hadn't experienced for decades. The girl's presence had brought a completely new dimension to his final days, a purpose that went beyond the accumulation of wealth or the maintenance of appearances. I think you're right, he admitted. I never imagined it would be like this. Like, what? That I would find some meaning just when I'm about to depart. Emily moved her queen, putting William's king in check. Maybe it's never too late for that. The news that William Harrison had taken in an unknown girl didn't take long to spread among his relatives. The first to appear was Michael, his nephew, son of his older sister. He arrived without warning on a Sunday afternoon, when William and Emily were playing chess on the porch. Uncle William, he exclaimed with false joviality, completely ignoring Emily's presence. It's been a while. I've been traveling for work and just found out that you've been unwell. William didn't stand up to greet him. I'm dying, Michael. You can use the correct word. Michael's smile faltered for an instant. His eyes finally rested on Emily, who observed him with a neutral expression. And who is this young lady? Emily, responded William dryly. She's living with me. Ah, yes. I heard something about that. Michael tried to maintain a casual tone, but there was evident tension in his voice. A charity case in your final days, Uncle? Very noble. Emily remained impassive, accustomed to being treated as invisible by people like Michael. William, however, felt an anger he hadn't experienced in a long time. It's not charity, Michael. Emily is my guest and should be treated with the same respect as any person in this house. Michael raised his hands in a placating gesture. Of course, of course. I didn't mean to offend. Actually, I came to see how you are. The family is concerned." "The family is concerned about the inheritance, you mean?" Michael's smile disappeared completely. "Uncle, I think we need to talk in private." William looked at Emily, who was already preparing to withdraw. "No," he said firmly. "Emily stays. Anything you have to say can be said in front of her." Michael hesitated, visibly displeased. "As you wish. We're concerned about the decisions you've been making lately. This arrangement, for example." He gestured vaguely in Emily's direction. "Don't you think it's a bit imprudent to bring a stranger into your home at this delicate time?" "It's none of your business," responded William coldly. "Uncle, be reasonable. You're a man of immense wealth. People can take advantage of your current condition." Emily finally intervened, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Michael, isn't it? I'm 12 years old. I have no interest in your uncle's money. I'm here because he invited me and because, unlike some people, I don't abandon him when he needs company." Michael was momentarily speechless, surprised by the girl's articulation and posture. "You don't understand how the world works, girl," he finally said with condescension. "Adults use children like you for bigger schemes. Someone is behind this, I'm sure." "Enough." William stood up with difficulty, leaning on the cane he now used constantly. "Michael, you and the rest of the family only appear when you want something. Years without a visit, without a phone call, and now you're all concerned about my well-being. Don't insult my intelligence. You're being unfair. We've always respected your privacy, your reserved lifestyle. You respected my money, that's what." William took a deep breath, feeling the fatigue that now constantly accompanied him. "Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to finish my chess game with Emily." Michael opened his mouth to protest, but something in William's expression made him reconsider. "I'll return at another time, when you're more receptive." After his departure, Emily remained silent for a few minutes, observing William recover his composure. "He'll be back," she finally said, "with reinforcements." William nodded. "No doubt, the news that I'm near the end will circulate quickly now. They'll all come to claim their peace." "What will you do?" "Exactly what I was already doing. Live the time I have left as I want." He looked at Emily with a tired smile. "And at the moment I want to lose another chess game to you." In the following days, as predicted, various relatives began to appear. Some were more subtle than Michael, showing exaggerated concern for William's health and asking seemingly innocent questions about Emily. Others, more direct, openly questioned the girl's presence and the influence she might have on the decisions of a terminally ill man. Amid this unwanted invasion, William summoned Richard, his lawyer, for an urgent meeting. "I want to alter my will," he announced without preamble. Richard, who had been expecting this since Emily's arrival, maintained a professional expression. "I understand. What changes do you wish to make?" "I want to ensure that Emily is protected after I'm gone. She doesn't go back to the streets, Richard. Under no circumstances." "Are you considering formally adopting her?" William hesitated. "Would it be possible to complete an adoption in time?" Richard shook his head negatively. "The process is long, even with your influence, but we can establish a substantial trust fund for her with trusted administrators, guarantee her education, housing, everything she needs until she reaches adulthood and beyond. Do that. And I want part of the foundation that bears my name to be redirected to support programs for homeless children." Richard made detailed notes. "Should I assume your family won't be satisfied with these changes?" "My family is never satisfied with anything, Richard. They'll receive enough to maintain the lifestyle they've become accustomed to, but no more than that." While the legal procedures were being arranged, William's health deteriorated rapidly. Linda, the nurse, now remained at the mansion full-time. Emily, despite continuing to attend school, spent more and more time by William's side, reading to him when his eyes were too tired, or simply sitting in silence, offering a comforting presence. On a particularly difficult afternoon, when the pain was almost unbearable despite medication, William called Emily to his bedside. "I have something for you," he said in a weak voice. From inside the drawer of the bedside table, he took out a small carved wooden box. Emily approached, curious. "It was my mother's," explained William. "The only thing of hers I've kept all these years." Emily carefully opened the box. Inside was a simple but elegant silver medallion with delicate floral engravings. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Open it." Emily obeyed. Inside the medallion was an old photograph of a young woman holding a small boy. Both smiled at the camera. "Is that you?" William nodded. "And my mother. It was taken shortly before she passed away. An aneurysm, according to the doctors. It was sudden." Emily closed the medallion carefully. "I can't accept something so personal." "You can and will," insisted William. "I want you to have something to remember me by, something that meant a lot to me." Emily held the medallion tightly, fighting against the tears that threatened to fall. In the months they had lived together, she had never cried in front of William, maintaining the same strong and pragmatic posture that had helped her survive on the streets. "Thank you," she said simply, placing the medallion around her neck. "Emily," William made an effort to sit more upright, "I need you to know something. I've arranged everything so that you'll be secure after I'm no longer here. Education, home, money for your needs." "You didn't need to do that." "Yes, I did. It's the least I can do." He paused, searching for the right words. "In these months, you've given me something I never had, even with all my money. A real family. I know we started with an agreement, a kind of theater, but at some point, it became real," completed Emily, her voice choked. "Yes." William smiled weakly. "It became the most real thing I've ever experienced." That night, William's condition worsened significantly. Linda called the private doctor, who recommended immediate hospitalization, but William vehemently refused. "I won't end up in a sterile hospital," he declared. "I want to stay in my home with Emily." The following days were a constant battle. William's family, upon learning of the gravity of his condition, intensified their visits and pressures. There were those who suggested that Emily and Linda were preventing adequate treatments, that William wasn't in a mental condition to make decisions. Richard, the lawyer, became a constant presence, ensuring that William's wishes were respected and keeping the more aggressive relatives at a distance. Emily, despite the pressure, remained unwavering at William's side, becoming his fiercest protector. A week later, on a clear spring morning, William called Emily close. He was weaker than ever, but his eyes maintained a surprising lucidity. "Emily," he murmured, "read to me." She picked up The Little Prince, the book that had initially united them, and began to read. She reached the passage where the fox talks about creating bonds, about the importance of becoming unique to someone. "You become eternally responsible for what you have tamed," read Emily, her voice clear and firm despite the contained emotion. William smiled. "It's true, isn't it? I never understood that until now." Emily nodded, unable to continue reading. She held William's hand, feeling how cold it was. "You know what's funny?" he said in a thread of a voice. "I spent my whole life wanting to leave a legacy. I built buildings, companies, fortunes, but none of that matters now. You helped many people with your foundations," reminded Emily. "Yes, but not for the right reasons. I did it out of vanity, for recognition. Only now do I understand what really matters." Emily waited for him to continue. "What matters are the connections we create, the lives we directly touch. You taught me that, Emily. A 12-year-old child taught me what it really means to leave a legacy." Emily squeezed his hand more tightly, as if she could keep him tied to life just with that gesture. "Don't be afraid," whispered William. "Everything will be all right." Those were his last words. William Harrison departed peacefully that morning, holding Emily's hand and with a slight smile on his lips. The funeral was grand, as expected for a man of his position. Politicians, businessmen, and celebrities came to pay their last respects. Emily kept in the background, observing with attentive eyes the demonstrations of grief that, for the most part, seemed as theatrical as the initial agreement she and William had made. After the ceremony, Richard gathered the family for the reading of the will. Emily was invited to participate, which generated immediate protests. "What's the purpose of having this girl here?" questioned Michael. "She's not part of the family." "Mr. Harrison left specific instructions," responded Richard calmly. "Emily has every right to be present." The will, as expected, caused a commotion. William had been generous with the family, but far from what they expected. A substantial part of his fortune was destined for the foundation that would now include specific programs for children in vulnerable situations, and Emily received not only a significant trust fund, but also the mansion where they had lived together. "This is absurd," protested Michael. "We're going to contest it." "Feel free," responded Richard calmly, "but I should warn you that Mr. Harrison anticipated this reaction and took all legal precautions. I can guarantee that his will shall prevail." In the months that followed, as predicted, the family tried to invalidate the will, claiming that William was not of sound mind at the end of his life. The process was long and draining, but Richard proved to be a tireless defender of his deceased client's wishes. Emily, meanwhile, adapted to her new reality. She continued studying, now under the legal guardianship of a social worker appointed by the court, who had been carefully chosen by Richard. The mansion, too big for a girl alone, underwent a gradual transformation. With the approval of her legal guardians and using part of the funds destined for her, Emily began to implement the project she had discussed with William in his final days, transforming the property into a shelter for homeless children. Harrison House, she called it, in honor of the man who had changed her life. A place where children could find not just shelter, but also education, affection, and the chance for a new beginning. 5 years later, Emily, now 17, walked through the gardens of Harrison House, observing the children playing among the trees. The place that had once been a symbol of isolation and solitude now overflowed with life and hope. The silver medallion remained around her neck, a constant reminder of the unexpected bond that had transformed two lonely souls. In her office, a photograph of William occupied a place of honor beside a special edition of The Little Prince. As she watched the children, Emily instinctively touched the medallion. "You were right," she murmured, as if William could hear her. "It's never too late to find meaning." In the library of Harrison House, the chessboard remained set up, always ready for a new game, and on the windowsill a small plaque with an inscription that Emily had personally chosen. "What is essential is invisible to the eye. One can only see clearly with the heart." The end. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of William and Emily has touched your heart. To continue this journey of emotions, we've prepared a special playlist with equally moving stories. Find it here, clicking on the left. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the bonds we form throughout it. Don't miss our